everyone! Today I want to talk a bit about the Soul Calibur series, mainly because it's still kind of new, and to be honest, I'm a little obsessed with it at the moment. I've been playing like crazy ever since I started playing in February when I found out Amy was going to be included as a DLC character, and my obsession has only gotten worse since then. So I'd like to talk about something in particular that's been on my mind for longer than this game has existed, but is really fueled by this latest game. My favorite characters are Amy and Raphael, and there's something intriguing about them that easily gets dismissed or taken out of context, and nobody seems to really be discussing it in depth. Either it gets dismissed entirely, or it's just reduced to a crude joke. So I'm going to present to you guys a thorough analysis of their relationship, based mostly on Amy's Soul Chronicle from Soul Calibur 6. I'll be posting links to anything useful I can find, mainly Amy's Soul Chronicle, but also Raphael's, as well as any clips featuring either of them that could come from another game. So if anyone out there wants to double check my details, you're more than welcome to. And this kind of goes without saying, but this video will be loaded with spoilers, so I recommend only watching this. And of course, any links that I post, if there is zero risk of spoilers. So basically, play all the games, finish their story modes, and do Raphael's quest in Libra of Souls. Now, I've always thought, ever since playing Soul Calibur 3 and unlocking Amy, who became my insta-fave after years of maining Raphael, that their relationship wasn't exactly a fatherly-daughterly one. And before you close the video and think I'm just some crazy fanatic gamer with a twisted perception of romantic love, hear me out. It's not just some weird fantasy ship that I just want to be true. This is the impression I've always had from every single game featuring the two. I know this has been discussed before, but not very in-depth. But now that Amy is released for Soul Calibur 6, there's so much more information to their story that literally nobody is discussing. It's always either people saying, it's a father-daughter relationship, or Raph is a pedo. And never the possibility of, I think they might actually genuinely be in love with each other. And I'll try to land on every topic, so this video might be a bit lengthy, but my idea is that last one. After playing through Amy's Chronicle, there is no doubt in my mind these two are madly in love with each other and meant to be with each other. Why, I always thought, ever since Soul Calibur 3, there might be some sort of romantic feelings for Amy on Raphael's part, is largely because of how much he talks about her and refers to her as his beloved. I know it's a stretch, but there's a lot of stretches in here, and it always seemed a little unusual to me. That was the beginning marker of a potentially more than familial relationship between Raphael and Amy, and I haven't found anything to lessen that thought. And then in Soul Calibur 4, and this wasn't anything obvious, just a little subtle, but I thought their endings were cute, despite the ruthless slaughtering of the servants, so Raphael could be alone with Amy. But the ring out was super cute, and it really showed the playful nature between the two, and I know it probably wasn't intended to be an indicator of romantic interest, but that's the direction Soul Calibur 3 had already put in my head. So it just kind of stuck, I guess. And again, this isn't real evidence, this is just my thoughts on their cuteness. I just wanted to get that out of the way.
Ring out!
On Soul Calibur 5, Raphael is referred to as wandering for his lost love. Like, okay, that's not really how most parents would describe their relationship with their children, but whatever, do your thing. We all know he's beyond batshit crazy at this point, so whatever. Still one of my favorites. But then they released Soul Calibur 6, and I'd be willing to bet money that if I played all of Amy's Chapter 5, Crossroads of Promise, and the beginning of Amy's Chapter 6, A Fleeting Wish, someone not familiar with the series would never know he adopted her if they watched me play, and instead would probably instantly become convinced that they're equals who are in love with each other and just afraid to say something. And nobody's talking about this, and it's frustrating because it isn't even subtle anymore. Before I go into more detail with Soul Calibur 6, though, I'd just like to point out to the few people who caught on to some of my points and just call Raph a pedo. First of all, Amy is a teenager, which I'll explain later. And even though this is still frowned upon in today's society, remember most of these games take place in the 1500s. So the thought of them being together romantically with such an age difference was probably socially accepted in terms of the game's timeline. In addition, the attraction to a teenager is not a pedophile, it's an ephebophile, and I will be a little nitpicky here. Not that most people care, but there is a difference, and there's also a huge difference between seeking out kids for sexual purposes, and being truly in love with someone who unfortunately just happens to be a teenager who you've known since they were a child. So yeah, being romantically interested in a teenager might technically make him somewhat of an ephemophile, but Amy is absolutely for sure in love with him, and she just doesn't talk about it. She almost seems more interested in him than he is with her in Soul Calibur 6, which seems to be the reverse situation as in 3 through 5. A lot of players think Raphael is insane for being obsessed with someone who shows no interest, but that is no longer the case at all. Some of the things that make her beyond familial affection toward Raphael quite clear are some of the things she says and some of the things that are said about her. Amy struggling to find her buried emotions and the things she wants from Raphael and how she truly feels. These are all quotes from her Soul Chronicle. Without a doubt plays a large role in the reason Raphael points out her other great fault.
And you've one other great fault. Care to know what it is?
I'm all ears. Let's hear it.
You forget you are my daughter here. You should refer to me as father or lord. It is unseemly for a noble to disrespect her father.
Dummy. Never mind.
There's a lot more to these lines than meets the eye, I feel. I think Amy wanted to change the subject because nobody wants to acknowledge their love interest as family, although at this point she still struggles to understand her feelings. On top of it, and I know this is a small thing, but keyword here. You are my daughter here. It's like he's trying to tell her he knows her, just pretending while around Lord Dumas and Bayless, but then he doesn't think of her that way either. And the whole Lord comment just seemed like a joke, so I don't think he was being serious. Especially considering he gave up when he called her fault disrespect, and Amy insulted him immediately. Being visibly frustrated just seems to kind of fuel this thought, but also he doesn't really seem to care at all that she always calls him Raphael. This is the only point in any of the games that he ever brings this up. And if he was truly so concerned with her disrespecting him, there's a million other opportunities throughout the games that he could and should totally punish her for being disrespectful, but he chooses not to. It's almost like he's trying to feel her out for the reason she doesn't acknowledge him as a father in any sort. And more importantly, what would be the point in putting that in the game unless the creators want the players to think something other than a father-daughter relationship? Especially considering that so many players already acknowledge a familial relationship as opposed to a romantic one, which I find rather shocking. But then I remember I'm probably one of the few people who have played it repeatedly and obsessively to the point where I could probably recite every line in their story modes. It seems completely pointless to do this and not follow up on it. There's a reason she calls him by his name, and that reason is very heavily embedded into the series. If it were truly a father-daughter relationship, she would address him as such. It really is that simple.
That girl, Amy, is it? She is not your daughter, correct? If you are to become my son, you should send her away to an orphanage, perhaps.
Now, Amy's Chapter 5, Crossroads of Promise, is without a doubt my favorite interaction I've ever seen between the two. It's completely loaded with emotion, and it's not even very subtle. The entire battle with Raphael as a way for Amy to prove herself to him was teeming with undertones of romantic interest and emotional tension. See for yourself.
It's been a long time since we trained together, Amy. I shall stay until you are satisfied, since we won't meet again for quite some time.
This journey, you'll be gone long?
Yes. However, my destination is clear, as is the home to which I will return. I shall finally fulfill the promise I made the day you injured your leg.
Do you remember your other promise?
Of course. The fate of that promise is still in your hands, as it has been since the day we first trained together.
Good. Then today, I will prove myself.
Battle 1. Fight!
This reminds me of when I swore to grant you one wish when you proved yourself a true swordsman.
Why did you promise me that anyway? It's my turn now. How obvious.
Battle 2. Fight!
Perhaps I was enamored with the idea of promises, vows.
When he said that to her, I was 100% convinced. This is not my imagination. This isn't just me making up some crazy, ridiculous love story out of nothing. I could overlook a few flirty mannerisms here and there, even his obsession with pleasing her, but that was the final straw for me indicating his romantic interest in her. It's like he wants to marry her, obviously, at this point.
That's not an answer. Not that I really care.
It's not the answer she was looking for, expecting, or hoping for. We can tell that she still likes that he made this promise to her to begin with, but why did he promise her that, of all things? To grant her a wish when she proves herself to be a capable swordswoman? Was it just a motivator so that she could protect herself better in his absence, or something more meaningful? I wouldn't put it past Raphael at all if he just really wants to know what it is that she wants more than anything. After all, she struggles to say what's on her mind, and he is obsessed with her happiness. The poor girl's been struggling with depression her entire life, so of course he wants her to be happy. Perhaps this was a way to give her time to think through her emotions, and for him as well, in the hopes that her wish just might be the same thing he wants, which is to have a romantic relationship. It could give her the upper hand for sure, to put the relationship entirely on her terms, because he may be an ephebophile, but he is not a predator. Because he wants to see Amy as an adult, and although she's a teenager at this point, she does prove herself to him. He even calls her a woman. I truly believe this whole test was largely to see how adult she really is. The context just doesn't give much room for any other interpretation, and nothing's gonna convince me otherwise. Soul Calibur 7, do not make me regret saying that.
Time for bed. Sleep eternally. Raphael, I told you not to hold back.
I can't help but wonder if she scolds him because she suspects he might have let her win so he can grant her that wish. If this is the case, I suspect Amy's bothered by it because she legit wants to be a capable swordswoman, and I'll elaborate on him holding back in a little bit.
What?
Checkmate.
Checkmate. Now, I understand, I feel like her choice of words has a lot more meaning to it than simply, I win. At first glance, I can understand how anyone out there might not give much thought to it, but this means a lot. In a game of chess, checkmate means you've cornered your opponent, they can't go anywhere, and they're absolutely helpless against you. Checkmate is something you can't get out of, which is exactly what we see here. Amy has the upper hand. She gets Raphael exactly where she wants him, at her mercy, and he can't get out of it now. He made her a promise, and now he has to deliver. More importantly, a checkmated Raphael means he can't go anywhere, which we know is exactly what Amy wants. She doesn't want him to leave.
Very well. I acknowledge you as a true swordswoman. What is your wish?
Well, what I want, Hurry back as fast as you can. I'll make my request then.
She seems nervous here, despite seeming confident enough to prove herself just moments ago. She tries to buy herself some time by saying she'll make her request later. Obviously, she lost her bravado at this point, but is still eager to tell him how she feels, and she knows what she wants. That's when Raphael gets pretty bold and starts talking to her in a very flirtatious manner, I might add.
Are you sure that returning as fast as I can is not your true desire? Very well. I shall take those words as a command from my one and only queen. I, Raphael Sorel, swear it upon my life. I look forward to hearing the request you come up with.
This gives the impression that he knows she doesn't want to be away from him, but her wish is a lot heavier than just that. Now, calling her his one and only queen is also a pretty heavy statement, not just because calling her a queen is a sincere form of flattery, respect, dedication, and of course love, but throwing in a one and only in front of that, that's not exactly fatherly, even if she is his one and only daughter. Speaking of daughter, in that last line of text, the game is literally telling us it's all for show. Adopted parents don't use quotations. They would see their daughter as just that, a daughter, not daughter. It's insulting to imply that the parental relationship isn't real and genuine because of a lack of shared genes. Also, keep in mind that he was just checkmated by Amy, so calling her a queen is an insinuation of something between them romantically. Only a king can be checkmated, and if he's a king and she's a queen, not princess, which is what she should be called if she is a king's daughter, well, you do the math there. He's definitely romanticizing her in a not so subtle, but still narratively creative way, and I find it adorable. I just wish more people would understand this. So blah blah blah, he gives her the Albion and tells her how he made it especially for her, and then says,
I hope the bond between us is never severed, Amy.
like, dude, we know. And again, not something a parent would say, not because it's weird, but it's just kind of a given, or at least it should be. I see no point in a parent saying that. After this conversation, the player enters the next chapter in Amy's Chronicle, A Fleeting Wish. Amy is back inside the castle, and she very sadly sighs and says, checkmate.
Checkmate.
Oh, a stunning victory, milady. Despite a number of blunders, a solid strategy saw you through. Still, it is unusual for you to take so long to make your moves.
It's as if she's disappointed in herself for letting him go, and now she feels like she just checkmated herself. Although it becomes apparent she's just playing an actual game of chess with Malus, and of course, dwelling over Raphael's departure as well as her silence.
Malus, have you ever held back against me?
If I may be frank, yes. On several occasions, but all long ago.
Oh, that's fine then.
Clearly, the issue of Raphael always holding back with Amy is still on her mind, and I think Amy was hoping that Malus would say that she's never held back because that would probably imply that it's something personal between her and Raphael. What I'm getting from this dialogue is that Amy starts wondering why Raphael holds back on her, thinking maybe it's because he has a soft spot for her. And while that's definitely true, Malus kind of breaks her heart when she tells her that she too has held back on her, and making Amy think that it doesn't mean anything at all if he does.
You have a habit of bottling up your feelings, milady. You may find that voicing your thoughts will lessen their burden.
Ever since that day, it feels like my emotions are somewhere else. Voicing my thoughts will lessen their burden? I don't know. I hurt. Raphael, don't leave me. What? Is that what I truly feel? My wish, the thing I want from him. I was lying to myself.
We can infer a lot from the series of events in her chronicles, so there is something she wants from him that she is afraid to ask for. To me, it seems pretty obvious that it's something that is really serious and took her a long time to come to terms with, something she has reason to be cautious about. It makes sense to conclude that she wants a romantic relationship with Raphael for various reasons. First, one would understand the need for silence. It's as if she's afraid he might leave her for good if he doesn't return the feelings. She might fear that she makes him uncomfortable, and because she cares so deeply for him, decides to stay together platonically rather than losing him for good. Second, the fact that she never actually states what it is that she wants leads me to think it's secretive for a reason. We already know she has a hard time voicing her feelings, but to insinuate a romantic relationship with an adult male and underage female is definitely questionable and controversial, even if her age isn't explicitly stated. But especially if they are also supposed to be relatives. Even if not by blood, we can't expect them to just come right out and confirm such a controversial relationship. We'll undoubtedly have to wait until Viola. Getting a little sidetracked here, but I'm still interested in knowing her exact age. Judging by her voice, appearance, intellect, body type, what we already know about how long she's been traveling with Raphael, I'll say with 99% confidence that she's in her mid-teens here. We know that she was less than 10 years old when she met Raphael, and judging by how well she can articulate her thoughts, albeit only to herself, she's probably the maximum age in that range, 9. I can't picture a kid any younger being able to reason through things on the level that she does. Amy's Soul Chronicle also confirms that she is in fact Viola, which also helps to determine her age somewhat. Since Soul Calibur 5 takes place 17 years later, and both Amy's height and Viola's height are listed as 5'3", in some sources this conflicts with itself, but I will present more information later. We can get somewhat of an idea on where Amy is in her physical development in Soul Calibur 6, and she'd be at least 14 or 15. Being this age would mean, although she is likely at her full adult height, her breasts aren't done growing for a few more years until approximately age 18 or so, and as we know, Viola's are bigger. So Amy's between 14 and 17 years old throughout her playable games, and I'd like to point out that there are discrepancies with height and breast size though in the games. Viola's artwork shows her as having much larger breasts than in-game, for example. In the Soul Calibur 5 art book, the new Legends of Project Soul, Viola is listed as a C-cup, but they appear much larger on the cover art. In addition, Amy is listed as not even having a bra size, although in the games and even artwork, she has noticeable cups, however small, and cleavage. Hers are the same size as Talon's, who are listed as A. She's not flat, she's an A cup. If they don't fix these mistakes, I'm applying for a job as Amy's personal manager because I focus on her so much more than her creators and developers. The scar on her leg is another problem. It isn't always there. It isn't on Viola, however, it also isn't on Amy in Soul Calibur 4. But it is on Amy in Soul Calibur 6. It wouldn't be possible for a wound deemed incurable to suddenly disappear within a year of it existing after several years. Unless this has something to do with the malfestation, and if that's the case, then, well...
To be honest, I'm quite annoyed.
The art at the end of Raphael's Story Chronicle shows a much bigger height difference between himself and Amy. He's 7 inches taller than her. He's 5'10", she's 5'3". So just about the size of a human head. In combat, this height difference between them seems accurate, but in Raphael's Story Chronicle, where he offers Amy some hot chocolate, she's almost child-sized, barely to his chest. It's not accurate if you go by the official height listing and compare in combat. But back to my point, and I am terribly sorry for allowing myself to get that distracted. She's definitely in her mid-teens here, probably about 15 or 16, based on what we know as well as biological facts about human anatomy. She's definitely not 18 yet. This is an official canon fact. So yes, I can see why the creators might not want to come right out and declare a romantic relationship between them, despite the fact that it was pretty common in the 1500s for a girl her age to marry someone of Raphael's age. All they can really do is imply it without making any declarations and see who catches on to it. But it seems they really have to beat us over the head with it because most of us just aren't getting it. However, it is clear that their relationship is based on love, not lust, and we know from his Story Chronicle that Raphael would literally rather die than hurt her in any way.
It's over! You don't want anything to happen to the girl, do you?
Amy! Let her go!
Certainly, in exchange for your life.
You win. Amy's everything to me.
And he never does anything to hurt her, except for toying with the smitten girl's emotions, but that's not his fault. So while other players are out there calling Raph a pedo, just a reminder, he has never physically done anything to her, so he is not a predator. Again, there's a big significant difference between the two, and that needs to be acknowledged, because I love Raphael, and he doesn't deserve to be treated like a child molester, because he isn't. There's nothing wrong with the way he feels for Amy, and vice versa. Despite the oddities in their relationship, meeting her when she was a child, having a large age gap, adopting her, they're still definitely soulmates. And it's a really interesting star-crossed lover story, seeing as how the circumstances of how they came together are the same things that keep them apart. A commonly mentioned thing in Amy's Soul Chronicle is chance and coincidence. This gets talked about a lot.
Raphael. That's what he called himself. I don't know why I decided to go with him, but I did. It was pure chance I was there when those soldiers came, and I only lied to annoy them. And yet, Raphael wanted to give me a better future.
Fight!
Tell me, was it by chance that you targeted us? Raphael. Why did I shout his name? I still don't even understand why I decided to follow him. It was mere chance that I saved his life. Nothing more. But from that moment on, Raphael was always there for me, providing me with the future.
Oh, my sincerest apologies. He is not your father, is he? Nor is he someone important to you, just a man you're with by chance. Correct?
What I want is... It was only coincidence that I saved him. Which means me being here is also...
She doesn't follow up here. I interpret this as her starting to question her fate with Raphael and starting to realize that it wasn't just chance, and her entire life with him was more meaningful than that. It was destiny. None of it was by chance. They truly are soulmates. Speaking of soulmates, I'd like to astrologically confirm just how good the two are for each other. And with all due respect, whether you believe in astrology or not, video games tend to use astrology as part of character development, and it works rather well. So please bear with me even if you think it's dumb, because I promise you this is probably what the creators intended. But before we begin, you might wonder how we can astrologically confirm this when Amy's birthday isn't listed anywhere. However, Viola's birthday is listed as Day of Prayer to Vesta. I googled this years ago, and there are multiple days of prayer to Vesta, ranging from June 7th to June 15th, placing her as a solid Gemini. Raphael, born on November 27th, would be a Sagittarius, Gemini's exact opposite sign, which makes for a best match, if you will. I plugged their signs into various websites that analyze the compatibility of zodiac signs, and Gemini and Sagittarius rank extremely high together. I don't particularly care to go into that much detail about what the site says, so if you're interested in reading it for yourself, I am including some links in the description, so feel free to check that out if you'd like. There's a few more things that don't have much to elaborate on, but they're still definitely worth pointing out. Like, overall, the extreme fondness that most relatives don't share in the game or reality. Like this less than fatherly request of him.
Will you come to change the flowers again? Bring roses, bright and beautiful red, to remind me of your hair.
This in itself isn't particularly absurd, I suppose, but with all the other subtle and not so subtle hints, I can't help but hear that as non-familial fondness. In Libra of Souls, when you start Raphael's side quest, there's also some cuteness there. Melis seems surprised that although Raphael said to get Amy whatever she wants at the market, Amy gets coffee beans because that's what Raphael likes. That's sweet. That's very sweet of her. And then when you encounter Raphael, he tells you with unnecessary enthusiasm how much he adores Amy. Like, we get it, dude. You really love this girl. And have you heard their battle dialogue?
Okay, Amy,
Let us begin today's practice.
Raphael, no holding back on me.
Come here, Amy. Good work, Amy. Wonderful as ever, Amy.
Fight!
I think I deserve a reward. Maybe some hot chocolate? I like moments like this.
You have improved. Let us call it a day. How dare you, Amy! Come here, Amy.
You seem happy. Raphael, I told you not to hold back.
This is one of my favorite things about this game. In previous games, there really wasn't any special interaction, so this added detail was really a great touch that totally improves the quality and enjoyability of this game. Soul Calibur 6 also gives us a somewhat, but not so subtle indication of Amy's romantic interest in Raphael in the character compendium. At the very end of it, it states that Raphael formally adopted Amy. Even so, she never refers to herself as Amy Sorel. The only reason that would really be is that she doesn't want to label herself as family to him. That would make the two off limits to each other. Another thing worth mentioning is that on many levels, I find myself treating the true nature of their relationship in the same way I treat the speculation of Viola's true identity, Amy. What I mean by this is that ever since Soul Calibur 5 was announced and Viola became known, I knew she was Amy. There was never any doubt in my mind about it. First, there was the clothing style, the hair, the face, the red eyes, the height, the skulls and roses, and then the amnesia that makes her completely forget everything while Amy just so happens to be missing. Then, when I played the game, I heard Heather Hogan and thought, there's no way this is just a coincidence. They even have the same voice actress.
Time for bed. Now sleep forever.
KO.
I am empty, but you are emptier still.
Even some of the battle quotes and whatnot, being right next to Raphael on the character's select screen and sharing a stage with him. And despite the one thing, a weapon change, Killick basically being Edgemaster in Soul Calibur 5, I knew what they were up to. Sure, if it was just one or even a few small similarities, it could easily be dismissed, but I couldn't stop telling myself they know what they're doing. They know what thoughts they're putting in our head with these similarities. Of course, they were intended to be the same person. There was never a doubt in my mind, and it baffles me that even up to the day Amy was announced as DLC, despite the freaking orb and Dance of the Oracle playing in her trailer, people still weren't convinced. But it was confirmed. I wish people would start trusting the mega fans who think through things like this, because look, we were right. I say that I treat Viola's identity the same way as the relationship between Raphael and Amy, because it isn't just one small thing that a person can take out of context to misinterpret their affection. It's every sign, subtle or not, pointing to this same conclusion. In Soul Calibur 6, it's dang near every single line of dialogue, and the hints that have been there forever in previous games, but people tend to overlook things just as they overlooked everything about Viola. It's stated in Soul Calibur 4 that Amy was harboring some kind of emotion she was afraid to talk about, and felt restless without Raphael after he left. I'd like to know how many of these gamers talk to or about their daughters in the way that Raphael does with Amy and vice versa, because admit it, it's weird. To put it bluntly, it's insulting to the creators to insinuate that there's nothing more than a familial relationship here, especially when they get bolder with their hints with time. They know exactly what they're doing. To suggest that they're giving fans the wrong impression is an insult of the highest degree to their creative intelligence. But sadly, I believe the reason most fans don't understand this is because of the somewhat taboo nature of the relationship. Not many people are willing to accept it as truth, because they will believe what they want to believe, which is what's normal or accepted in society. And not to boast, but I have a knack for working out story situations and finding hidden meanings and secrets to characters and plots. It's kind of my thing. I'm very obsessive, and on the rare occasion I've been wrong about such things, I was still very close. Even one of Raphael's quotes in Soul Calibur 6 is, "You know nothing of true love." I'm assuming this is a battle quote, because I've yet to hear it, and I don't know if there's any particular characters he says this to or just in general, but as obsessed As he is with Amy, I think it speaks volumes for him to be talking about true love, which again isn't really how a parent would describe their relationship with their child, however accurate the words are. The one thing that makes the least amount of sense is, why even bother having Raphael promise to grant her a wish if she never makes it? They could have done away with that wish-granting bit entirely, or just had her make the wish and be done with it. The fact that they put that in there and had her timid ass never makes it just screams romantic feelings and unfinished business between the two. So my question here is, what is Amy's wish, if not to be with Raphael, and toward the end of her chronicle, to save him, of course? Literally nothing can logically be said here. We know for a fact that she wants something involving Raphael. She wants something from him involving feelings that she had previously been lying to herself about. Remember, early on in her story chronicle, she tells Raphael that she's happy with the way things are.
Raphael, I'm happy with the way things are now.
While she does truly appreciate his company and having him in her life, clearly she wants more out of their relationship. It's just that what he's doing for her isn't really what she cares about. She already has an inkling of what she should ask for since she proves herself to him, but then gets nervous and chickens out because of the nature which she still doesn't entirely understand. She doesn't know how to voice her thoughts at this point, which makes total sense as she had never experienced these feelings before. And after talking with Melis, all she is able to verbally communicate is that she hurts and she doesn't want Raphael to leave. To further analyze her wish, I'm going to break down any possibility of her wish being something negative against Raphael, like for him to leave her alone. I'm going to break down the possibility that Amy is lying to herself, isn't thinking she's in love with him and then realizing she isn't. It's quite the contrary. She accepts it as love eventually in her chronicle. I am also going to break down the possibility of what she truly feels for Raphael being nothing at all, because we all know she doesn't talk about her feelings, but actions speak louder than words. Of course she cares about Raphael, a lot actually. She saved his life more than once when she didn't have to, even if the first time was only to annoy the guards. She sulks over his absence to an unhealthy degree, according to Melis.
Where's Raphael?
Calm yourself, milady. The young master left just the other day. It's not good for your constitution to sulk so much over his absence.
She becomes worried and goes after him. She can't stand to be without him. She wants to protect him and won't stop trying, even if she knows she will fail. She will never give up on Raphael. Even in other games when she treats his wounds and becomes infected herself from his blood, she stays by his side. That's loyalty. What lies in her soul. In Soul Calibur 6, in Raphael's story chronicle, she comes in to check on him because she thought he was mad about earlier.
Oh, Amy. Why the long face?
I was waiting for you to come back. I thought maybe you were mad about earlier. I've been scared recently. I never knew what it felt like to have something to lose till I met you.
This tells me she cares about their relationship and wants to correct anything that could go wrong. It's here that she starts to express her concerns, but he assures her there is nothing to worry about. Furthermore, even though she knows hope only brings disappointment, she doesn't stop trying to save Raphael. It's like he's the only thing in the world that matters to her. One can easily deduce through her actions what it is that she could possibly be wishing for, but I'd really like to know what other people have to suggest her wish is, if anyone disagrees, and there's absolutely nothing to suggest that she feels anything other than utmost love and devotion to Raphael. It makes no sense. To back up into previous games' evidence, let's talk about Soul Calibur 3. Now remember, we have narrowed Amy's age to 14 to 17 in her playable years. And if Soul Calibur 6 ends a year before Soul Calibur 2 through 4, then starting in Soul Calibur 3, Amy must be at least 15. In Raphael's ending, where he returns to Amy, they live together hand in hand. Now, what father in his 30s is going to hold hands with his 15-year-old daughter? Amy's always protecting Raphael and taking care of him, saving his life multiple times, tending to his wounds, going after him because her vision makes her worry about him. You get the gist of this. One might even go so far as to label her a healer, which I'll talk more about very soon. It isn't uncommon for a healer in sometimes even known as a white mage, typically in Final Fantasy games, but the pattern is still there, to be the main love interest. Oddly enough, the meaning of Raphael's name is God's healer. This sort of infers that the two are each other's love interests, and if you're wondering, the name Amy has the meaning beloved. Now let's get back to that aforementioned healer point. I also took the liberty of looking up Winter Rose to get a feel for any hidden symbolism for Amy. A winter rose is a more common name for the plant hellebore, which is known in witchcraft to treat insanity. One of the links I opened during the search also refers to a hellebore as an oracle flower. I know it's already been confirmed that Viola is Amy, but I still find that interesting and clever. There's not really much point in me saying that other than I thought that was clever, so I'd share. I realize there is probably still a buttload of players out there who won't be convinced that there is something romantic between Raphael and Amy even after watching this video, so if you need to comment something that opposes anything I say in here, believe me, I've heard it a million times. Unless you can post a link to gameplay that specifically states that they aren't in love with each other, it's kind of a waste of time. I really just wanted to make a video as a way to potentially connect with other players, because even after several weeks of Amy being released as DLC content, literally nobody is talking about the things I'm seeing here. I found one person in a comment on YouTube. One person. So I won't stop anyone from commenting what you want as long as it's respectful, even if I strongly disagree with it. But unless you give me solid evidence as to why everything I've said can't possibly be true, and unless you answer the questions I've asked in this video, what would Amy's wish be if not to be with Raphael, and why she only calls him by his name, don't be surprised if I just don't respond. It's nothing personal, I just don't feel like wasting my time. I've been hearing it for years, and it's nothing new to me at this point. The bottom line is there isn't much basis to assume there isn't any romance. I've presented respectful evidence to support my claim, and I expect the same for anyone who disagrees. Otherwise, it's just not a very engaging discussion, nor is it intellectually stimulating on any level. It becomes boring to just repeatedly hear and read, no, father-daughter. I'm not even exaggerating, 99% of players who post about Raphael and Amy refuse to converse on a higher level than dismissal, and it just breaks my heart. Another reason I decided to make this is just because I want to know who else out there not only believes in the suppressed romantic feelings between the two, but also supports that and ships them. In all honesty, and you may judge me however you like, I think they're a lovely couple. Regardless of the age gap in adoption, and they are so freaking good for each other, it's ridiculous. I mean, come on, how sweet is it that in Soul Calibur 6, he compliments her and encourages her during combat and praises her when she wins. It's cute and it's sweet. It's also cute when Amy wants hot chocolate. Basically, I'm looking for people to fangirl with because I sometimes feel like I'm the only Amy fan out there, but I guess I'm not the only one, just the biggest one. Number one Amy fan for life, and I'll fight anyone who challenges me on that. On a side note, I feel connected to Amy's progression as a character, even though I have nothing to do with the game production. Ever since reading about her in Raphael's Soul Calibur 2 biography, I thought, how cool is that? He's got someone in his life. It's cool that her name's Amy. I like the name. It's only one letter away from mine. How cool is that? I hope they make her a playable character in a later game. Then Soul Calibur 3 came out, and Amy was unlockable. But she didn't really talk. She says her name and has some cute battle groans. Even so, she's still my favorite, like, instantly. I was hoping for more dialogue, and then in Soul Calibur 4, she talks more. Soul Calibur 5 was a bit of a letdown since they didn't elaborate much on Viola's identity, but they confirmed it in Soul Calibur 6, and even started strongly hinting at a romantic relationship, something I have been obsessed with for like 10 years now. So, as my relationship with the Soul Calibur series coincides, I'll conclude, as should you, that I'm probably right in thinking they are in love. Upon further analysis of everything I've mentioned here, there are a few more points I'd like to top everything off with, those points being Amy's depression, Viola's relationship with Spy, and character relationships outside of Raphael and Amy. Upon further analysis of Amy and her Chronicle of Soul Calibur 6, I've noticed a lot more about her personality in depth than I had been discussing for the past few minutes. I'd only briefly touched upon it, not reviewing all the details. I think it might be much more significant to her story, and of course to her relationship with Raphael. In the beginning of her Chronicle, while still living in the slums of Rowan, or Ruin as they like to say in the game, it's not correct, she says to herself,
"It's not like I'm alive because I want to be."
This is a pretty strong indicator that even at her young age, she's struggling with depression. Although it does not seem that she is necessarily suicidal, however, she is apathetic, which is made quite clear in several instances throughout her chronicle.
You've given me a future. In return, I must give you the same.
Go ahead, if that's what you want.
Milady!
Malus, you're late.
My sincerest apologies, but that's not the issue here. Why must you insist on putting yourself in danger? And what happened here? I'm sorry, milady. I know where it is, but I cannot tell you. None may enter the library unless a problem has arisen. That is the rule.
I see. In that case, how many fingers must I lose before it becomes a problem? I don't care whether you live or die.
She really, truly does not care what happens to her. She doesn't even know why she went with him. Now, let's talk some more about that wish Raphael owes her. While I stand firm in my conclusion that her wish is more or less to be with Raphael romantically, it seems possible, likely even, that she originally might have been wishing for something else. Her original wish, assuming there was one, could have very well been something related to her depression, maybe even up to and including ending her own life. This actually makes a lot more sense than just assuming her original wish was to be with Raphael romantically, because oftentimes people suffering from depression don't open up about it because they don't want to deal with other people's reactions. And in this case, she clearly does not want Raphael to worry about her. This would explain why, when Raphael asks her what her wish is, she thinks for a moment and doesn't make her wish. Instead, she tells him, "Hurry back as fast as you can. I'll make my request then." It's kind of a sign that she is starting to want to live for Raphael. Taking the issue of her apathetic depression as truth, then I believe this is the turning point for her where she starts to acknowledge her true feelings for Raphael and realizes that what she wants, even more than to not be alive, is to spend her life with Raphael. It's as if she's being snapped out of her depression when he agrees to grant her wish. Not knowing how to put her new wish into words, she ends up giving herself more time just to be alive as she awaits Raphael's return. In this time, she ends up coming to terms with her feelings for him that she had previously only probably acknowledged as a crush. Even so, it's apparent that she never wanted him to go in the first place, as she sulks over his absence in the days to follow. After taking Melis's advice about voicing her thoughts, more can be inferred about her relationship with Raphael. When she says,
"Ever since that day, it feels like my emotions are somewhere else."
this could be referencing the day she proved herself to be a true swordswoman. As for her emotions, this probably means that she had never really felt a reason to want to live until that day. It's here that she understands her feelings and what she truly wants from him, and that she had been lying to herself. It's here that she changes her mind about what she wishes for and suddenly has a desire to live for Raphael. It's here that I believe she starts to gain a sense of hope for the future. This would explain why she says and does certain things. For someone who doesn't care about her own life to say things like,
"If I die, he would be very upset. I live so as not to lose,"
implies that she cares more about his happiness than she does for her own life, making him a reason to live. From this point on, she decides to live for the sole purpose of protecting him and keeping him happy, as he had been doing for her for so long. So, in an odd twist of fate, when she saved his life, he also saved hers by giving her a reason to want to live. Raphael conjured emotions within her that she had never experienced before. The next thing I'd like to analyze is Viola's relationship with Zwei, another Malfested who travels with Viola. Like herself, he does not remember anything about his past, not even his name. I've been looking into the new Legends of Project Soul art book, and there is a lot more information in there than I expected, including information of what's to come after the events of Soul Calibur 5, to give hope to its fans. In page 28, the last bit of text reads, "Though they knew very little about each other, the werewolf and the fortune teller made for an effective traveling pair. Their journey is far from over, and may never actually end. At least, not until Viola recovers her memories." This is easily taken as insinuation that when she remembers her past and Raphael, that will have higher importance than her current situation. It's evident that she will choose to be with Raphael over Zwei. This is important to note on several levels. Keep in mind that Zwei is a werewolf and Raphael is a vampire. In literature, werewolves and vampires despise each other. I'm honestly not excited at all that they did this. It feels a little too much like a Twilight meets Little Red Riding Hood disaster. However, the fact that she cannot travel with the both of them due to this conflict further establishes the closeness she has with Raphael, as she will no longer travel with Zwei once she remembers her past. On the cover of New Legends of Project Soul, Viola is the character furthest to the right, and Zwei is the uppermost character in the design. I didn't notice this at first, but the two are actually holding hands. If this is to suggest a romantic interest between the two, gross, then I guess it's even more evidence to support her relationship with Raphael, considering that she will be leaving Zwei to be with Raphael. I'm still not happy about it, though. No Zwei, only Raphael. It makes almost no sense at all for her to leave Zwei romantically to return to Raphael if he is intended to be her father instead of her lover. I'm honestly really excited to see how this will turn out and how they get to that point. The last thing I'd like to touch on here is the relationships between other characters and what they say about the relationship between Amy and Raphael. The two main reasons most players aren't so keen on the idea of Amy and Raphael being involved romantically are age and adoption, obviously. I'll be focusing on a mixture of both for this part, as there are other characters with similarities between their relationships. The first pair of characters worth mentioning is Huang and Seong Mina. I know, they're not a couple, but the parallels are definitely present. It is implied they might actually like each other as such in Mina's ending in Soul Calibur 6. Remember, in Soul Blade, they were supposed to be married. There is also a significant age gap, however, not as big as the gap between Amy and Raphael.
That day, I was surprised to see Huang home for the first time in a long while. Oh, Huang's my father's best student, and kind of like a mix between my mentor and my big brother. He was called a hero, and the country entrusted him with finding Soul Edge, the Sword of Salvation. My father also wanted me to marry him.
Really though, I can't believe you're already old enough to think about marriage.
I'm not! Those guys were just joking because father keeps talking about wanting a son-in-law to take over the Dojang.
Oh really? I've never heard him talk about that.
Huh? Yeah, I mean, I told him not...
Mina, I'm sorry I can't tell you more, but I'm returning to the army. We can protect our homeland with our own hands, even without the Sword of Salvation.
When you said we, Huang, did that include me too?
Mina, that's not up to me. Do you understand what I mean?
At the end of her chronicle, a very similar interaction occurs.
Mina!
Huang?
Well done, Mina. It's not up to me whether we includes you. Now do you understand what I meant?
Yeah. Hey, Huang, what happened to your job at the Navy?
Recently, I realized something very important.
Really? But you're so much older than me. I know. This is embarrassing, so give me a piggyback ride like you used to do.
I thought you said you hated piggyback rides because they were too childish?
It's not established as a romantic pairing, but the player will definitely see the suggestion there, especially considering the way Huang is holding her and she's blushing. And although they are not married or blood related, Mina's biography in Soul Calibur 6 actually lists Huang as her brother. Huang explains that she is like a sister to him since his master is her father, so they aren't actually brother and sister, but Pyrrha and Patroclus are.
I wish I could have heard you say my name just one last time.
Pyrrha! Let's go back home when this battle is over and take back the 17 years that we've lost. You are no longer alone. We are a family, so let's go home together.
Admit it, when you played through Soul Calibur 5, you thought the whole thing between them was very incesty. I thought I was alone when I first played it, but the end of it really got me with Patroclus talking about spending the rest of his life with his sister and the way they embrace and hold hands, pretty much do everything but make out with each other. I'm not even going to elaborate on the weirdness between them, but the whole situation kind of makes sense, however dysfunctional. It's such a universal thought that I'm not even going to elaborate on that. However, I will not argue any points against it either. The main point being, like, yeah, they made it weird. They made it very weird. I'm mentioning these 4 characters in particular because it really shows how the creators tend to blur and cross lines with specific types of relationships. Knowing this, it's rather foolish to say that Amy and Raphael can't be romantically interested because he's her father, especially when he really isn't. But yeah, family, totally off limits for Soul Calibur characters. Let me know what you think. Leave me a comment or whatever. I'm really curious to hear what other people's thoughts are before and after watching this. Even if you haven't changed your mind at all, I'm curious as to why other people still aren't convinced or why they won't even entertain the thought. I hope everyone got something out of this video, whether it's enjoyment, information, whatever. And I look forward to hearing what other people have to say. So that's all for now. I'll be back as soon as Soul Calibur 7 is released.
I swear upon the sword that binds us. I'll live so as not to lose. No matter how dark the road I must travel, this sword will light my way. Albion, the Radiant One, his hope, his dream, and mine.